welcome back to Ironside Ranch. We've got another guest with us today. We're back with on-site Travis, and today we're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and building your business and kind of how to get started and what you should be looking at trying to do right in those beginning steps. And it seemed like when I was starting my business, I had, there's a lot of hurdles to try to just figuring stuff out. And especially if you've never really been in the business world, if you come in, I came out of the military and then into corporate America. And so I'd never dealt with this stuff before. If you've worked in, any type of sales or 100% commission position, or even just, managing small side hustles, a lot of this stuff you may have learned along the way. And so if you don't have any idea, that's kind of what we were trying to get into is like, hey, let's just help people get their idea turned into something and go from idea to actual execution. So that being said, Travis, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Been busy.
Yeah, same here. Well, I think it helps to define business. Because if you can begin with the end in mind, it is certainly beneficial. To me, I've changed recently my mindset of what constitutes a business. If you guys have seen the cross of Robert Kiyosaki, he's got self-employed and employed in the same category. He's got business owner, and then he's got investor, and he's got the fourth one there. Business owner, self-employed, employed, investor.
Yeah, that's all four. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all four. Anyway, I'm currently in the self-employed category, which is the same as employed. Where I'm building my wealth is in the investing category. When I was younger, like maybe 5-6 years ago, I was like, I'm the big kahuna in the business game. And I had a business that was growing really, really fast, and it ate me. It was like one of those businesses that it was either going to be like a bear, and it was just going to absolutely dominate, or it was just going to destroy me. And so that one was like, and so anyway, I've shifted recently how I'm approaching it. So to me, business is like you're doing $1 million in revenue a year, and you're running like a business. I'm in that self-employment category at the moment.
Yep.
So.
And I think you're right. And the goal is to move from that, employee to self-employed, and then you want to be a business and an investor. That's kind of the way that I always look at it, because a business versus self-employed, I guess let's define that real quick. Is, self-employed, you work for yourself. You might own technically a business, quote unquote. You have your LLC, but a true business is something that in my opinion, the defining characteristic is I can step away from it and it manages itself for a period of time. It may not be indefinite, but I can step away from it. I could go take a month-long holiday and my business wouldn't be catastrophic when I came back. If you're a one-man band, carpenter or cabinet maker or something along whatever it is, you don't have that option because you're self-employed. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, the goal is to try to work your way around that spectrum. So my business, my inspection business is actually falls in that business category, which allows me to, as I continue on that progression, to move myself out of that business and more into the investor role. And that's where I'm trying to get to. And then from there, we try to build other businesses, and that puts that business back in the self-employed category. So my ranch falls more in that self-employed category.
Yeah. I'm relatively enjoying the self-employment thing at the moment, because at one point, I had quite a larger team. It was growing quickly. And I found, you will find things out about yourself that you did not know. And the more humble pie you can eat, the better and faster you can go. Mm-hmm. Because I was like completely arrogant and didn't really know I wasn't a good people manager. And so now I'm like, oh, I need to hire for that position for sure. Mm-hmm. A great book for those that are really looking to start a business off well, I guess on the right foot, is called The Lean Startup by Eric, his last name, Rice. The Lean Startup by Eric Rice. Basically, it's fail fast and fail often is like one of the mindsets there. He's a technologist, so he's got this like whole way of A/B testing ideas. He speaks a lot about minimal viable products, so he'll say MVP all the time. Minimal viable product, meaning let's say that we have an idea for like a juice drink, because I'm like into juicing and like those green type of juice drinks. I wish they sold them at the gas stations. Instead of like you go to the gas station, you're like Arizona tea or Red Bull,
Yeah, and they're both just loaded with fake sugar and corn syrup.
Yeah, it's like, man, if I could get like some fresh squeeze juice or whatever. Like that's what I really need. Anyway, let's say that we had one of those, that was our startup. We wanted to turn into like get bought out by Arizona Tea. So we're going for $1 million in revenue, like for sure. We're a business. The first thing we should do is like literally bottle up a product and get it out to the market.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the first thing we should do. Most entrepreneurs will be like, well, I gotta get my website good. I gotta get all this stuff out. And it's like, no, get out to the market. Cause like if no one likes it, then you don't have any feedback. And so
Eric, you and I talked about this the other day with your brother, and it goes back to that idea that, and it's really hard sometimes for perfectionists that have a good idea that want to get out there, but a 70% solution today is better than a 100% solution tomorrow. Yeah, and sometimes you really have to drive forward with that idea. And that was a real common phrase when I was in the Army, and it probably is what led me to a lot of my business success today, is that I've realized that, as Joe Salatin always says, close is good enough. And sometimes things just need to be functional and move forward.
Yeah, I had a farmer tell me all the time that it kind of got me into farming. I really kind of looked at their business they had going on. They had like 7 people, and like their real business was the land that they owned and operated. Mm-hmm. And then they would develop part of it, and then they would buy more, and then they develop part of it. Like that was really the real business. Mm-hmm. But they're still making like $300,000 a year as like a dad, his daughter, his farmer daughter, girl who like ran the farm, and then they had like 5 or 6 helpers. That would do all the labor. They would all do tractoring and stuff, but but he would say 90 is an A. Drove me crazy. But he's right. Like a 90 is an A. Like if it's good enough, it's good enough.
Yeah, and, I had a guy that we were getting his inspector license, and he was talking about taking his national home inspector exam. And, everybody in the state of Alabama, all inspectors have to do that. So we're getting him his license, getting him everything done. And he's studying. And I said, you think you're ready to pass? And he goes, well, I don't like to just pass. I want to go there and freaking slam it and, get the top score. And I said, let me ask you a question. When somebody goes to medical school and they get out of medical school and they're dead last in their class, what do they call them? Doctor. So I was like, you just go there, take the freaking test and pass it. And it's a 500 as a minimum score on passing. I don't care if you get a 501. You're still hired. Go pass it, because you'll continue to learn on the job. And what you find out as you get older too is, and a lot, stuff like that, tests are not an identifier of how much knowledge you have on the subject. It's how much knowledge the test writer thinks that you might have on the subject.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Real on-the-job training is what's up. So yeah. I think, when you go out and you start an idea, so you got an idea, you got to test it. That's the number one thing is you got this idea, you got to test it. If you can get some attention on that idea, whether it's like a Craigslist post, let's say you're doing a service business like locally, mm-hmm. You do some Craigslist posts, you do some Facebook posts, you buy some Google AdWords, so it'll get you right to the top immediately. You're just paying for that, and you got like a quick landing page, and you don't even have to have a product or service. You just want to see if there's any interest. So yeah, I think
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I think the biggest thing when guys go start a business is before you start investing anything, including your time, just throw it out there, see if there's any interest. Best case scenario, you can get some interest and say, hey, we're not operational yet, but I'm going to take your name and number and et cetera, et cetera. If you've got a product you're trying to put out, try to transact. Like if you've got, like, let's say you got like a protein shake or something like that, and you're trying to get protein powder out to whatever it might be. You obviously, until you get like 1,000 sales, you're not going to get a protein mix thing, unless you're going to like rebrand somebody else's product, mm-hmm. And so, but if you could sell it and transact, meaning you take their credit card information, you charge $1, whatever it is, and then if you don't have the product ready, you just refund it. But okay, certain amount of people are going to transact here. It gives you a lot of conviction moving forward before building something that maybe no one will want. Because the whole like build it and they'll come thing, I'm not 100% on that.
Well, and I think it brings into a good point, and just a general idea is that whenever you're in business, and even after the product is out, you should be testing these ideas and and doing your beta testing, and basically sending out small skirmishes rather than actually sending the whole troops out to battle. And it's one of the reasons that we've operated on mostly a debt-free principle. And it's not that we're opposed to debt. If I find the right investment opportunity, I'll go borrow $500,000 to buy a hard asset that I need to grow my business. But it's that I don't borrow money to go buy billboards or something like that on the gamble that they're going to work, because and you'll see people do that when they start up their business, and they'll say, well, I got this loan for $50,000 so that I can go do a bunch of marketing right at the beginning. It's like, whoa, stop. Do you know what marketing is going to work for your business? And we have beta tested, thousands and thousands of ideas for marketing. I remember one year, my partner and I, in like a 2-month period of time, we spent like 50 grand in marketing,
Wow.
and just in like 25 different categories, like trying all these different things, like billboards, radio ads, internet SEO stuff, like everything across the board. Then when we did that, we put a little bit into each one of them, and we keyed each one of them, and we said, okay, so the billboard, the discount code is BIL, and then the radio ad was iHeart or whatever it is, and then I could see and track exactly what sales came from each one of them, and I knew at the end of that 2 months, it was an expensive 2 months, but I knew exactly where my marketing was coming from and which ones were successful and which ones were actually getting people from the top of that funnel down to the sales pitch.
Yeah. So you guys can do this with Google Voice. You can get like free phone numbers and test things. So, and there's also a company called Twilio. You can also get free phone numbers, or not. You got to pay for a little bit, but you can get your area code with like a multiple different numbers, and they can all ring to the same phone. So this can be done.
Yeah, and now it's easier because we have an office manager that actually takes the calls in and schedules the appointments and everything, because we're a service business. So we just ask them when we do that, hey, how did you hear about us? And they'll tell us on there, and then we move on from that point. And what
A/B
for us,
testing, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just recapping. So A/B testing, different phone numbers to A/B test. I did something very similar with my latest business. So very similar.
And just even testing, I mean, sometimes your ideas have already been tested before you. I mean, I know you've got a mulching business or you do excavation work and clearing, and that idea was already tested. You knew that excavation and clearing and mulching was going to go forward, and that was going to be a good idea. What you had to test was, hey, are my marketing platforms going to work? Is my general business model going to be successful? And so that's where, and I'm curious how you did that, because those mulchers are not cheap, right? So a brand new one, what are you, 120,000 or so? So it's a hard thing to try to just dip a toe in.
Yeah, it is. So the way I did the mulching was road signs and Craigslist ads and that stuff. And I did before I bought the machine. I rented the machine. I tell people all this. I've got a course for Bobcat guys, like how to have a Bobcat tractor service thing. And I tested it that way. I built an email list prior to this. So like I have all the landscapers in town and everything like that. But what I found through my research there was most of the mulching work was like 40 miles to my south and like definitely 100 miles to my south. Mm-hmm. Almost nothing to my north, and like very little in my current town.
So let me ask you this, Travis, and because I think I already know what your answer is, because I'm sure you and I feel the same way on this. Did you undercut your prices when you first started to try to cut the competition?
No.
Yeah. No, I knew you were going to say that, man, because that is the rookiest mistake you see entrepreneurs make when they start their business. And I'm sure that the rate here is about $12.50 a day for mulching. I know that's about what it costs. I don't know what it is down in Florida where you're at, but
on the low end it's 12, on the high end it's 1,800.
Okay,
so it's somewhere in there.
So where do you price yourself at? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, we're at 18, and then I'm in a spot where I outsource it. This is good. I outsource it for 15.
Okay.
So I've got like 300. I typically do half acre to an acre a day, and then my business is actually pivoted. So like if we go through the evolution, the first business that I have going on, not the first one I ever had, but the first big business failure I had, like the biggest one I ever had, was a landscape supply company where I undercutted prices immediately. So I saw these two different suppliers in my town. One's doing $4 million in revenue. One's doing like $1.5 million in revenue. One comes up for sale. I get all the paperwork on it. I was actually looking at it. I was like, I could create this cheaper than I could buy this. And I always want to move up the chain, if you will, from like, the contractor. Like you start out like in that business, you start out in lawn care, you move into landscaping, you move into trees maybe. Uh-huh. And then you're like, we already have the equipment. We might as well just start supplying things. First mistake I made is I offered too many products too fast. Mm-hmm. Everything my competitors had from being in business for X amount of years. I
did the exact same thing. Huge mistake.
And in the hindsight, I would have started with one product that would have been compost. I had access to a mountain of compost.
So that's really interesting, Travis, because we used to offer a gazillion services, because for inspectors there's ancillary services out the ass that you can do, and so you have home inspections, you have 4 points, you have mold testing and radon and asbestos and lead painting. I mean, the list goes on. And we used to say, we offered all of it. We had all this stuff on our website, and we did all this crap, and it was a huge mistake because what you find out is, for one, you cannot be good at all those things. You're only going to be, and so now we do 4 services, right? I offer 4 services for that under that business. We do home inspections, commercial property inspections, 4-point inspections, and expert witness testimony. So we go to like court cases and go give our testimony. Those are fairly lucrative in our industry, and it's a way to leverage our license. But and those are the only 4 products that we offer anymore. And that has simplified things, and we won't be adding anymore. We have talked about adding like mold and radon back, because I could hire like a specific mold and radon guy. But for the reality of it is that when you spread yourself thin like that, you think you're going to bring in more revenue, and you end up just splitting your focus between all these different avenues, and you lose.
And I immediately went out and poked the bears. There's some things I did really well. I went out and I grabbed my competitors' price lists. My whole thing was called just-in-time supply. So it was like, we didn't have a shop. We had a shop, but we didn't have a retail location. It would just come to you. So every price we had was landed cost. So the margins were actually pretty nice. But the way that thing would work was like, the materials would come into our lot, and then they would go out to the site and everything. And it ended up morphing to like, people would just say on-site. So that's how I actually got that name. It was like, it's an on-site trap. So the first thing I did is I offered not only just one or too many products, but different like types of that product. Like mulch, we offered like regular landscape mulch, like red, brown, all this stuff. And we ended up finding out that like 80% of the sales were brown. Mm-hmm. So I could have literally started the business with like, we sell brown mulch. And I could have went to landscapers and been like, hey, I just want to earn your business, and I got the best deal on brown mulch. That's it. Yep. If you need any other colors, call these other 2 guys. But I got you on brown. I could have blown them away and then waited for them to request, like, hey, man, would you please get me some red? Would you please, whatever it may be.
That's it right there. That's a great point, because when you have loyal customers, they will request those services because they want to stay with you. And when you start building we have people that request for us to start raising rabbits and other things on our farm simply because they're loyal customers and they like our product, and they say, hey, we want you to do this. It's like, well, in the future, maybe. But as of right now, no, we're not doing it. We're doing a trial run with chickens this year. That's what we're branching out to right now. But it's a mistake to jump into too many things at once. It's an even bigger mistake to try to undercut your competitors as soon as you come on the market. And the going rate here in Birmingham is roughly $400 for an inspection. Depending on the size of the house, it'll be between $350 and $450. And one of the temptations of new inspectors to do is when they come on the market and their overhead's real low, and so they'll come in there and they'll say, well, I'm going to do it at $250 or $200 and undercut everything. And the reality of it is that with this many competitors on the market, there's a reason the prices are where they're at. It's because you have to stay in that area to be profitable, and that's what people are willing to pay. The other thing is when you're a service-based industry, people associate price with value, and so or price with quality, I should say. So if you come in there as an undercut, it doesn't matter. You can do a full day inspection at that price and do a wonderful job, but people will assume that you're a bargain basement shop, and so it's one of the worst mistakes that you can make on it. Yeah,
your business is unique because you have product and you have service. In your other businesses, like your ranch, I'm pivoting more towards products because I just like it better. Service is tough. Service means you always need people, and you always, like, as you grow the business, you have to grow the people, and you can't really automate anything. You can clearly streamline processes and stuff, but like when you move either one using heavily machine, like lean more on machining, like whatever it is, like whatever type of machines you're in, if you can do more with machines and people, that's a win. If you can do products, and you can scale products, in my opinion, better. And by scale, I mean you can increase your revenue, increase your business.
Yeah, service is hard because one of the things that you deal with in service is that people want to try to do it themselves, and especially, for us, we're home inspectors. So the home inspectors, what I always say, or home or commercial property inspectors, I always use the analogy that we're like general practice doctors, right? In that we're generalists in any one field. We're not experts in any field on it. So you'll hear an electrician come out and say, "Oh, that home inspector didn't know what he was doing. This is this is actually correct." And it's like, listen, you're supposed to be more valuable than us. And if you knew where your bread was coming from, the home inspectors are the one that butter your bread when we send you the business. So it's always kind of funny to me, but it's one of those things to where in our level, there's a lot of kind of jackleg handyman out there, and especially the worst ones are the dads of these young girls that are getting the house, and dad thinks, well, I can do the inspection. We don't need to pay that $400. It's like, Man, you're about to spend $200,000 on a house and you want a nickel and dime over $400.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I mean, we see it, we see it in different aspects as well. I just try to avoid that if I can. I try to pivot to a different clientele base because my
Well, and
business.
that's one thing you get by raising your prices too.
Yeah, I mean, my business kind of evolved because you asked about the mulching, and it was like, so I started with supply, offered too many products, made a big failure, very expensive. We grew we were growing quick. I mean, we got to 500,000 in revenue probably in 18 months, 18 or 24 months, which was kicking butt from zero. And then I pivoted it into forestry mulching because it was something I could do with one guy, one machine. And I could double the business by adding a second guy and a second machine.
Mm-hmm.
With the supply thing, I had to add a machine, a truck, and a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to keep expanding it. So I needed like one guy for like 3 machines. I was able to condense it. But the way I tested it was I tested it through science. And then once I got into it, I realized like most of my business was in a certain area. So the way I scaled it was I started to find guys I could outsource and I could coach. So I taught people how to do it. Other like landscaper type of guys or whoever was in that game wanted to be in Bobcats. And so I would start grabbing the leads and selling the work and then outsourcing it to them. And then that's kind of pivoted into like a lead generation business. So now it's more of like becoming an Angie's List, right. Where I've got like a website and like things come in through different phone numbers and it goes direct, to the guy. And now I'm like working on that thing. And so now it's like, okay, now I have a product in a way. It's still service, but now the product is the site. Right. And so as I start to build this thing and put more time and backlinks and content on that thing, eventually somebody's going to come along with a buyout offer. I can sell it for the cash flows or whatever. So that business morphed into like a supply or into service and then became like where our product leads.
So that's interesting. That's actually exactly how we're morphing right now because we started out, for one, started out with just me with the home inspector's license and my kitchen table. And, I always make the joke that that's all I had because I'd just gone through a divorce, so my only piece of furniture was a kitchen table. Yeah. But, 5 years later now, we're looking at trying to find franchise opportunities in other cities around the state. So, like Montgomery, Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, and opening up down there. And basically our value now is that, that lead generation, the website, having the systems in place to be able to support an inspector. So we can literally find a franchisee opportunity and find the right person. And I can say, hey, we can show up tomorrow. I'm going to give you a company car. It's going to be loaded with all the tools that you need. It's going to have all your software. You have an office administrator that's ready to schedule you. And you don't even have to worry about filing a business license. We'll take care of all that crap. All you've got to do is go out, find realtors, and do inspections.
Yeah, so you create a process. So that's an SOP for these new guys, like a strategic operating procedure. So I've got like a little book. I use like a Word document. It's basically a Google document, and then in there I got all hyperlinked. It's in the course, I go over it real well. But like I've just got the operations of what we do. Mm-hmm. So it's like like how to operate our accounting program. You click on it and it's got like all the steps. And so like if anyone like is new to it, you can just theoretically, and it's for me too. It's like how do I post on YouTube? I got that process written out. Yeah. So it's like, okay, here's how it goes. It goes on this SD drive and then it goes onto this hard drive. And then afterwards, I back it up. But there's a whole process to it. And I'm always trying to streamline it. But like, when you write it down, that's the key to business is you got to be able to write down these things. A lot of them is just kind of like on your head, like kind of like, and when you start out, you're just going to be putting out, you're going to be shooting from the hip. Like there's just no way around it. You're just going to be going out there and just like literally shooting from the hip. But as you can write down those processes and streamline it, then you can start to put people in it. And it's
kind of like having your business plan. And I've always kind of agreed and disagreed with the experts on business plans. If you talk to the MBA experts, they want to see a 40-page business plan that's laid out, that has all these details laid out. And to me, the business plan is really to keep the owners and the shareholders and the management on track with the business growth and to guide the directions and create that roadmap. And so for me, I limit my business plans now to about 5 pages because that's a usable document. 40 pages is not a usable document. And so my first several business plans were like 80 pages long, like they were ridiculous. And now I put everything in about a 5-page document. I try to revisit it I try to do it every quarter, but that doesn't always happen. And then my business partners and I, we review things on our shareholders meetings annually and go over it. And that's okay. Hey, where were we trying to go this year? Where did we actually hit? Where are we trying to go next year? And review it like that. So having that plan in place, I think is paramount to your success. I think the general rule is failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't manage what you can't measure.
Yeah, and you're not going to hit your business plan. Don't think for a second that business plan is written in stone. That is a working document.
Yeah, yeah, it's ever changing. You're always editing it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what your business is going to be. Like my evolution of my business has basically turned into a form of lead generation, which is now an actual scalable business, something I can actually do. One thing I didn't like about the business is like I'm geographically tied to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying not to be geographically tied. I'm trying to be like over the next 3 or 4 years to be super mobile. Like the ability to just grab a laptop and a phone and work from anywhere. That's like what I'm trying.
That's actually what my wife and I are trying to work to on a lot of things too. Because if I have a ranch hand and I get my inspection business, Timberline, if I get that moved into more of a business role, right now, like I said, we're transitioning from that self-employed to that full business, and I'm kind of right there, getting ready to move out of things. And so, as we make that transition, that makes it a lot easier for me to, like you said, I can grab a laptop and my cell phone, and I can go on holiday in Iceland, and have a great.
Yeah, I mean, just don't be married to the original plan. That's really the game. It's like, because my mulching business, my actual physical mulching business turned into more of a stump grinding business. Like as far as the physical part of the business, which I might sell this year, maybe. We'll see. It's going like pretty well. And it's getting to a spot where the other things I have going on are growing, and that's growing as well. But like I normally have always sold businesses. I've sold 5 up to this point. So I'd like build them, I'd sell them. I'd have like, a score, and I'd go and invest that cash into like whatever.
Yeah, that's one of the options that we're looking at with our business right now. I actually met with a business broker this afternoon to have them do an evaluation on us and see like, hey, because I just basically asked them, I was like, hey, what do I need to do to get this to a sale value of 1.5 million? Because then my partner and I walk away with $750 each after taxes, $600. That gives me enough money to take that cash and go, okay, I want to put this into something else and build another business. And,
right.
and in this business, they would have to hire me on for a period of time for like 18 months afterwards. So I'd have a guaranteed salary for 18 months and then a bunch of cash to go start a new venture with.
Yeah, that's what I've done. And so, when I got into it, I realized like, oh, wow, all the mulching work is like 40 miles from my south, which is great. It's a cool opportunity. But also like that's a haul every day back and forth, or a lot of that work would be like hotel stuff. So I started with A/B testing by throwing out just road signs, stump grinding phone number. I didn't even own a stump grinder, like at all. Mm-hmm. And I just put out like 50 of those things. And then I went and did quotes at what I kind of thought the numbers were. I went and worked with a guy, one of my buddies who has a stump grinding service, learned from him for the day, went and did these quotes, put out these signs, did these quotes, stacked like $6,000 in sales. Then I bought the machine. Mm-hmm. And then I bought the machine, and I got like four of those $6,000, like, because some of them were like, hey, I need it done now, so I just referred it to my friend. And then the other ones were like, hey, I can schedule you 3 weeks from now. And then I went out and found the machine and bought it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that, you don't have to take the business right now. You can schedule that at your convenience, because most people, for stuff like that, they're willing to wait. Most people, you don't need that stump ground right now. If I know you're going to come in 3 weeks and you're going to actually show up and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. And but the thing is with the stump grinding thing, and this is why I mentioned the self-employment thing, is like I can only work in the office so long because I just can't sit for 9 hours or 12 hours, and I work 12 hours. Like that's what I do. I think that's like a day. I like to be doing something, but I can't do like 12 in the office. I can do like 4. So I've got to go. Like I have to go listen to podcasts. I have to go listen to books. Like I have to go listen to YouTube videos. So like I need to go out and drive.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Like, and so I started doing the stump thing. The thing with it though, for guys watching, is like it's a great thing. Maybe the thing makes us like I gotta run the exact numbers, but probably netting around 50 a year on that part. We have other parts of the business, but probably about 50. So I could theoretically work for anybody running like an excavator or something like that, and make the same amount, not have my capital invested, because I got like, let's call it like 70 grand worth of like stump grinding gear. But it's not a scalable business, so it doesn't have to be. But that's not like a business where you're just dropping an employee and just like off to the races, because it's a very like cash oriented business. And I actually started it because I wanted to stack silver. And so I was like, I need a cash business. And so I started thinking through it. I'm like, stump grinding. Like a lot of times it's just like 300 here, 250 here, 500 there. At the end of the day, you can come out with like $1,000, 1,100, 1,200, and your costs are like just fuel, and not mud.
And that's really what we look at with our business, is that I should be making, if I'm fully booked out, we want to be making $1,000 a day. That's the only way, that's how you keep the business profitable. And so when we have jobs that come in and it's going to take one full day, it's $9.95 is our rate. If it takes 2 inspectors, then it's $14.95.
Yep. Yeah. And I got a price list as well where I just like, cause it is a service business, but it's still a productized service where I've just like created it into a product. I got, 2-hour, half day, full day. Same with the tractor, same with the dump truck, same with the stump grinder, which is like my physical business thing, which, I don't know how long I'll do the physical part of it, but for now, for sure. I mean,
yeah, and I'm with you. And as far as we work 12 to 15-hour days, and I can't sit at. There's no way in hell I could sit at the computer for 12 hours a day, and I have to get out. And so, and between the ranch and my inspection business, I'm always doing
you're always out.
Long days. Yeah, I'm always out. So,
which is great. I mean, you do have to have that balance because if you're always out and you're never in the office, then your office stuff, if you don't have any help, like at the beginning days, it can get messy.
Yeah, and that brings me back to the kind of the main idea of this is finding your why, and this is something that you kind of pushed back on one of the last videos that we did, where I said I think that you need to have an important why, and we didn't get into the details on this. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on it. I talked about in one of the previous videos that Simon Sinek always said, you need to find your why to do your business, and to a certain extent, I very highly agree with that. Does that mean that my life's ambition and my dream was to grow up to own a home inspection company? No, but I love construction. I enjoy doing construction. I enjoy managing businesses, and that's my why to get up in the morning and go do that. And obviously, like anybody, I like making money. And so that's kind of what I mean when I say find your why. I'm not saying go find just because you like to draw, just because you like to draw doesn't mean that you're any good at it. Doesn't mean that people are going to buy your art.
Right. So, I mean, you could be in the business somewhere else, selling ad space in a magazine or something. But yeah, I mean, it just depends. For me, I approach that like if you're a younger guy and you're starting out and it's like, you need to ideally find that trifecta, like what are you good at, what makes money, and what can you sell? Like, and if you can get in the sweet spot, cool. Like I like machines. Can you sell machines? That's a whole different conversation. Like everyone likes the mulching machines, but can you sell the work? Yeah. Right? Or is it oversaturated? And then does it pay well? Because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Too many people jump into the market, then they beat down the prices. And you can be competing with guys that are running for like $950 a day. And you're like, no, we can't even put like teeth on those machines for like $950 a set. Like we're not even going to mess with it, Yeah.
So, well, and people will call us here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you have to find those trifecta. I mean, at a certain point, like if you're just starting out, it's like you do whatever you got to do, like power washing, car washing, like whatever capital you have that you can start with. Yeah. And then as you go, you start going. It's like, for example, like when I sell the physical business assets that I have, because right now inflation is actually making them all go up in price. Oddly enough, it's the most bizarre time. It's like I'm making money with them. They're getting more hours on them, and the price of these things keeps going up.
Yeah.
So it's like for the moment, I'm going to keep doing that. But then at some point, maybe this year, maybe at the end of this year, I'll be selling them probably. Because moving more to as my farm starts to mature, because I'm like you, I got a lot of stuff planted and stuff. So I still have like I'm looking out at what I got. And, I'm still 3 or 4 years away from being like, I could farm all day, yeah. Like right now I farm in the evening. Like I was just out there, I farm in, weekends. I get it in when I can get it in if I have an off day, but I'm also like, not fully and so I'd like to pivot out to that.
That's where I'm at too. I'm about 4 years away from before I can go full time into it.
It takes 7 years.
And I may not want to. I may want to do other things. But I want the option of going full time into it because I love doing it. I love waking up in the morning and going out and doing it.
It's more of a product business too. It's like you sell your product, you're done. You don't have to deal with customers and there's problems with service businesses in general.
There is, and customers are always your biggest headache. And that's one reason why we do a lot of commercial inspections is because commercial inspections, it's a much easier product. I make more on them on a per hour basis and because they're higher liability. And but the customers are substantially easier because they're business people. So they're like, hey, do the numbers work? Yes or no? Okay, move forward. Whereas when you start dealing with residential real estate and you deal with people, there's a lot of emotion involved with that. And you do an inspection on somebody's house, and 3 months later, their hot water heater stops working, and it's like, well, I mean, I can't predict the life expectancy of your hot water heater, but that can cause some sore feelings and sour some relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, service businesses are just like that. They're very people-oriented. Like when we were in landscaping and tree service, I had a crew walk out at some point in time. Like, it took me a while to get some of my gear back. But, like, those client relationships went with that crew.
Yep.
So it was like, hey, we're used to that guy dealing with our stuff. And he just called us and said, and he had named the company like the same name almost, like one word off. It was bad. But it was like, that's part of a service business. Is like the service is going out and taking care of the trees, you know, or whatever it is that we're doing.
We had a similar issue with some cows last year. Actually, we sold our beeves last year, and the butcher is now no longer in business. But that butcher not only stole meat from us because each of our cows weighed about half of what they should have when we got the meat back, but the butcher didn't know what he was doing as far as the cuts go, and so you couldn't even tell what slice of meat you were getting. Like a T-bone did not look like a T-bone. We had no idea what it was. Like what part of the cow did this actually come from? And then we had more hearts back than we got cows, so he gave us other people's hearts, and who knows if we got our own. And so it was this whole issue. But our customers went with that butcher. So that butcher went out of business, but I lost, several customers off of that because of that butcher. And even we did everything we could to make it right. I gave everybody a free quarter of a pig just to make it right, and provided everybody, and we like delivery and everything. Brought all my customers a quarter of a pig, and several of them were still pretty pissed off that they never came back.
Yeah, that's the part of a service business that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. It's why I'm trying to pivot more to a product business. It's still service. We're still selling leads and stuff, but the value of the business is in the website that we have and the content that we have. And so, sure, we can have competitors, but we essentially own a local territory. We've got the phone ringing there, and, we get to pick the contractor. And if the contractor's not good, or like we don't want to deal with them, because some people are just not nice, we just say, hey, we'll find somebody else in that area, or we just shut down that area entirely. Just pull the phone number off of that area and change it, change the local area to something different. Yep. And it also allows us to it's non-geographically tied. So, I mean, there's definitely, if I had my pick, product over service for sure. I think one way to get into that is find a product that's really good and try to resell it. And that can be a very low overhead business. Sometimes you have to buy some inventory, but my friend used to do this like diesel fuel stuff. Like he'd buy like fuel, let's call it like fuel stabilizer, and he'd like resell it. So he'd go out and talk to fleets or guys like yourself that buy a lot of fuel, and he would be reselling them some injector cleaner or something like that. And that was a cool business for him because he could literally run it out of his truck.
Yeah.
And,
and there's lots of options like that. If you'll just get creative about it and quit putting yourself in a box and think that, hey, in order to start a business, I have to buy a $50,000 truck. I need to go finance all this stuff. No, you don't. And that's one reason why service businesses are so popular to people to get started. And actually, I actually prefer a service business rather than a heavy product related business. But that's personal preference rather than a logical reason. It's just because I enjoy the business aspect of it better. Yeah. But I guess, Travis, I don't want to keep running this on too long, and I know we got another video we got to shoot. So do you have anything you want to say in closing?
Oh, I think just when you're putting together a plan, understand it's fluid. It's always changing. There's a difference between a product and a service. Type of business. If you're going to do a service business, do a productized service where you itemize out what you're doing, and be careful of your offerings. You can be very narrow, and that would be a good way to start.
Yep, wholeheartedly agree. Well, thanks for coming on, Travis. Guys, if you have not subscribed to On-Site Trav, I'll put a link to his channel in the description. Obviously, like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure and share the video if you have not already done so. That really helps us out. It's a great way to get back to us without actually having to pay anything. It doesn't cost you anything to share the video to people. But if you know somebody that wants to start a business or maybe has talked about it, share the video with them. That'll help them out and certainly help us out. So thanks again for watching, y'all. I really appreciate it.